What does success look like in year two of Brent Brennan? Wins, losses, identity, all that and more, and some more additions.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. This show is brought to you today by FanDuel. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. All right, now, Arizona football in year two under Brent Brennan. What does it look like? Now, as we talked about before, I was very hard on Brent Brennan in his first year, and quite frankly, he deserved every last bit of it. I don't understand the people that were like, you know what, just trust the coach. You just got to support the coach. No, you don't have to just support the coach. You don't have to do any of that. You can say, listen, he's doing a bad job. I want him to win games, but he's doing a bad job. And that's where I was kind of at when it came to Brent Brennan this past year. And a big part of it wasn't even necessarily the wins and losses. It was just the lack of any form of identity. That was the part that I think just really upset me, is that there was absolutely no identity to this team. And I don't know how you inherit a team like that where you've got a ton of talent and you have no identity. And he was saying that from pretty much the beginning, that he didn't have, we're just trying to figure it out. The first thing that I need to see from him is some plan. I need to know exactly what I am looking at. And that is something, too, that I am going to give him some credit on so far. I love the Seth Dagey hire. He is a guy that comes in here. He's got a pretty good background. Not only does he have a pretty good background, he's also somebody that has played and coached in a variety of different styles. And that to me matters. That to me matters in a big way, because you look at him and he played, obviously, he was a Texas Tech. Quarterback. So you know that he's familiar with that. But when he was at Marshall this past year, he also had a quarterback situation that wasn't ideal. So guess what he did? He went ahead and he prioritized running the football. I like offensive coordinators like that. I like coordinators that look at it and they're like, okay, we need an identity, but we also got to figure out what this roster does best. This past year, it didn't feel like there was any of that. It felt like there was this situation where it was like, okay, we're just going to go out there and just kind of wing it and have fun. There can't be any of that this year. There's no margin for error with Brent Brennan. All that, the goodwill he had by keeping all those players and them all coming back, that's essentially out the window at this point. So you got to factor that one in. But again, the first thing I want to do is I want to know what I'm looking at, and that comes back to Noah Fifita. Noah Fifita, is he getting the ball out quickly? Because that was another thing, too, that made no sense. When you have an offensive line that can't really protect, and what you're doing is you're going with delayed handoffs. You're going with, you're having Noah basically drop back 25 feet. I can't have any of that. I've got to be able, if your offensive line isn't good, do what other people do and get the ball out of there quickly. Misdirections, things like that. Quick hitters, slants. Those are the kind of things that you need to be able to do if you're Brent Brennan and you are this coaching staff. So I believe that Seth Dagey is probably going to be able to do that. Now, the one thing, though, that we're never going to fall into the trap of, again, is just going by what the coaches say or, what they're saying in practice about how everything looks good. We found that one out last year, and it did not, obviously, it did not work very well. So there's obviously that. Now, the next thing, too, that I think we need to talk about, though, when it comes to the identity is, what are you trying to do on the defensive side of the football? That is another one that I think is very interesting in all of this. What do you want to do on the defensive side of the football? Last year, I don't know what they wanted to do on the defensive side of the football. It wasn't good, and I think that was a But I like Dwayne Aquina. The problem though is that they made a couple massive mistakes, and one of them's on Dwayne, one of them's not on Dwayne. Their player evaluations last year were terrible. You don't have a guy like Big Bill Norton who is literally making key plays for maybe the best team in all of college football in Texas, and say, well, you know what? Well, you're at the University of Arizona. We're going to have you locked in a battle with Chuba May. Um, Yes, that just can't happen under any circumstances. Also, as we talked about before, running off Deuce Davis was not a good idea. Deuce Davis is very good. Deuce Davis, Arizona could have used somebody like him. So you have to be able to play the right players. And again, I know that sounds very trite, but it just kind of is what it is. At this stage in the game, you have to be able to play the right players. If you don't play the right players, then that's going to be an issue for me. The first thing, though, when it comes back to the identity, though, is the offensive line. What are you going to do there? Now, again, I like some of the players that you've added. Obviously, the kid from Hawaii was one of the better tackles in the Mountain West. But again, it was the Mountain West. So we're going to see how that plays out. But I do like, if Big Rhino's healthy, I think Big Rhino's going to be just fine for Arizona. I really do. I like Big Rhino. And, like we talked about before, Deuce, I like Deuce. Can Matthew Lotto, can he make that next jump? We're going to find out. I don't know if he can make that next jump. We're going to find that one out though. So that one's going to be interesting as well. Then you also have a situation where with Arizona where you're also kind of wondering, all right, what is the next step here for the Wildcats? And by that, I mean the running back spot. You've obviously got Ishmael Mahdi now. That's a big one coming in here. So you might add another running back, you might not, but overall, I think you're probably pretty good. This is a guy at Texas State that was very, very good and uber productive. And I'm a big believer in Kedrick Reesano. I love Kedrick Reesano. I think that he is I think he's got next level back potential to him, as our guy Portland Timbers always talks about. He would have out of high school, and he's only 1 year removed. That's something else that we need to factor in here as well. Is if you're getting somebody that is 1 year removed from high school, or like 4 years removed from high school, and they never played, they're probably just not that good. But if it's a guy like Reesano, you probably know that there's an idea that he's fairly good because he was only there 1 year and he flashed while he was here at the U of A. And I think that is a big part of it. As we've talked about a million times, I like Alonzo Carter and I think he's going to do a very good job. But the running game has to be better. But a big part of the reason the running game wasn't good last year, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt obviously wasn't able to play. I think he got caught with his hand in the cookie jar. But the offensive line. That's a big part of this. And I think what you're going to see with this staff too as well is that they are going to just be bringing in players left and right. And some of them might suck. Some of them might be good. I don't really care, to be honest with you. You want them to be good, but I'm going to be okay with that just mainly because I want, you just need bodies. And you know what? Some of the dudes that you brought in last year just weren't good. Jonah Rodriguez was not good. No other way around it. Ryan Stewart, the coaching staff loved Ryan Stewart. He wasn't good. He wasn't good enough to be able to play at the U of A. So there was that. You got to be able to find out very early. Now I think this is going to be a big year for Oglesby because I thought Oglesby did an atrocious job as the offensive line coach. He's back. So, again, it's like one of these things that you're back. I'm going to hope you do well, and hopefully you do well. But at the same stage, this is also something where you kind of behave yourself into this where you don't really have a margin for error. Now, there are some people that watch Oglesby and really like what they see. So that is something that I'm going to give a big benefit of the doubt to. But I got to see it this year because what I saw this past year was atrocious. Again, and there were just basic things too. You have Big Jonah Savanea at right tackle when he's your best offensive lineman. Why in the world wasn't he at left tackle? That made absolutely no sense. Granted, he's probably going to play guard in the NFL, but if you're going to have him at tackle at college, you might as well have him at the more important tackle position. Wendell Moy took a huge step back. So that offensive line, all eyes are going to be on that offensive line, as we talked about, a previous show going forward. So there's obviously that. Then, what are you going to do with that center position as well? Because, when Josh Baker wasn't in, you saw just how valuable Josh Baker was. I mean, Josh Baker was incredibly valuable to what Arizona wanted to do, and he just wasn't, when he wasn't in there, it just the backup options just were not good enough. So there's obviously that. But that is a big part. I need to know what I'm looking at offensively. I need to be able to look at and know that I need to be able to know what I'm looking at and just kind of where everything is in that frame of mind. So, but before we get into all of that, though, let's pay some bills. Game Time, check it out. All right, here's the deal with Game Time. You know this. You can go to all kinds of different stuff with Game Time. You can go to concerts. You can go to you can get tickets. You can do a lot of different things. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Create an account and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time. What time is it? Game Time. Ooh. Now, again, we know people that have used these for concerts. We know people that have used these for sporting events. Heck, you can do a lot of different things with Game Time, and that is the best thing about Game Time. And it is here. It is here to help you out. It is here to make things easier for you. So check it out at Game Time. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now on at the defensive side, this is going to be interesting because you're returning a lot of players at this stage. Genesis Smith is back. Dalton Johnson is back. Those are big players that you are getting back that can all play. On the perimeters, then, you're looking at probably a Javion Cole, a Marquise Groves Killebrew. I'm going to need some more players, though, in there because, again, that's not enough. But Traden Stukes is going to be an interesting one as well. We'll find out. But overall, done a nice little job with the secondary. Now, you lose Jacob Manu. Obviously, that's going to be a big, big aspect to this. Last year Jacob Manu wasn't Jacob Manu, so there is that. But you've also got a spot too where I think with you've got a spot as well with Tay Brown. He's obviously a big part of what you want to do, but you're going to have to get some linebackers in there. Again, you're bringing in the FCS leading tackler. That's going to be something that, we're going to watch. Now, again, at the FCS level, it's difficult to really say just just how good somebody's going to be, but there is obviously that. And then on the defensive line, you got a lot of guys that I have no clue what to expect. Literally no clue. If you were to tell me that Chancellor Owens is good, cool. If you were to tell me that he's no good, cool as well. I know that Trey Smith is all right. I'm all right with Trey Smith. Losing Ty, I like Ty, but Ty is also not a difference maker in that regard. Ty was never going to be the one that was going to get you 7 or 8 sacks. I think that a lot of people were hoping that would be the case. That just was not the case with Ty. So I think he's definitely replaceable. But you got to get players in there that can obviously do that. But that's what I'm looking for, though. Can the defense, though, can it be opportunistic? Can it look like, it's not just getting beaten down and not look as small as it did? Like last year's defense looked small. And, again, I guess that works if you've got like if you've got like a Desert Swarm type entity to you and stuff. But that's obviously not what we're watching. Now, when it comes from a win-loss perspective, this one to me is difficult because I always say this with people, and I mean it. When I look at wins, losses, first thing is, if you're going to lose, please make it entertaining. That's why I like Rich Rod so much. With Rich Rod, guess what? It was entertaining to watch, and that part was I love that part about Rich Rod. It was entertaining to watch. If you're going to lose games, let's lose these games 56-48, whatever the case may be, and let's have fun doing it. This past year's team bored me senseless, and that is, I think, the other concern here is that it was just boring to watch. So first, I need to be entertained. This is football. At the end of the day, we're also watching something where it's like, all right, I need to be entertained. Period. Point blank. There will be no ifs, ands, or buts about this. So I need to be entertained. Second of all, the other thing too that I'm looking at that I also need to know is from a wins-loss perspective. Like if you win 5 games, that's where I don't really know. Is it getting bowl eligible? You might say, listen, if you're bringing Brent Brennan back, there's a chance that you're not going to be very good this coming year. So are you going to give him a third year? That's where, to me, it becomes interesting when it comes to the win-losses perspective, because this past year was that go for broke year. This past year was the year where, you needed everything to play out, and it didn't. So I mean, I'd like to see 5 or 6 wins. I don't know, though, that this team is going to be better than it was last year because, like I said, generally you don't lose players like T-Mac and Big Jonah and get better. That isn't generally what happens, but who knows? Maybe you get better across the board. I don't know. That's going to be the part that's going to be very interesting for me. Now, uh, but that's going to be, and again, in the Big 12, love Big 12 football, but I'm also going to say as well that it's not like this is some daunting, it's not like you're playing 4 awesome teams to begin with, left and right. I mean, all these teams in some way, shape, or form are generally flawed. I mean, you look at it this past year, ASU was looked at as being the worst team in the conference. ASU turned out to be the best team in the conference, and honestly, it wasn't even close. They obviously, BYU, kind of in the same boat. So this is a conference where I think that if you are picked last, or if you were picked at the, if you're going to have a chance to be able to make up some ground and be able to make up some ground quickly. So we'll see. But he's got to hit the ball out of the park on these evals, though. He's got to. I mean, last year you could say he got in late, whatever the case may be. Don't really care because you didn't really get any difference makers. As we talked about before with Jed Fish, the one thing that Jed Fish was able to do is that he was able to get difference makers. Even in that last portal, you look in that last year, you were able to get Taylor Upshaw, who is arguably your best defensive lineman. You were able to get Big CO as well. You were able to get players in here that were able to make a difference, and we're going to be able to make a difference very, very quickly. So you're going to have to hit the ball out of the park there. But from a wins-losses perspective, I mean, flirt with being bowl eligible. That would at least show me that you're, no matter kind of how much you fumbled that first year, that you were at least getting things a little bit better on track. That's what I guess I'm looking at. But again, I'm just more interested in what I see, because this team this past year could have won 6 games and I still would have had the same exact feeling because I didn't know what I was watching. And I think that, that's the thing. I don't know what I was watching. So there's going to be that. We will, but we'll see. I mean, time will tell. As Lamont Lovett always says, time will tell. That's going to be the case here. I like what you did with the wide receiver room. I think you did a pretty good job there. But again, I'm also not banking on anything because I've already seen this before. Where you're expected to be good, promises this and that, and then you basically just kind of wet the bed. So I'm not going to sit here and say that because of some of these offseason moves, things are good. I don't really see any of that. So we will find that one out. Okay, now I'm going to talk a little bit then about what this means for a possible year 3 for Brent Brennan. What does he need to do to be able to get a year 3? We're going to talk about that, but first, FanDuel, check it out. FanDuel. All right, now here's the deal with FanDuel. You can put down $5 and you can get $250 in free plays if you're a new customer. It's that simple. It's that easy. Check it out. The great thing about FanDuel is this too, is that you got college football here. You got college basketball here. You've got the NBA. You've got the NFL. This is the time of the year to be betting. It's fun. So again, check it out at FanDuel. Great thing about it, too, like I said, great deals. $5 down, $250 in free plays if that bet hits, but you got to be a new customer. And again, you got conference play tuning up here as well. You got Arizona being taking on TCU. You got Arizona taking on Cincinnati. These are some games to be able to get into very, very quickly. So again, check it out at FanDuel. You will thank me later for this one. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about where we are at then when it comes to Brent Brennan. Does he deserve what, I always thought this, that if you were going to bring back Brent Brennan, you were probably if you saw mild improvement, you were probably going to decide that he needs another year. Because if you brought him back after what we just saw this past year, and then you say to yourself, okay, well, I need you to win 8 games or whatever, that's not being realistic. That's just wasting time. That's just wasting everybody's time. And I don't know that that's something that anybody really benefits from. So there's that. I think you got to factor that part in as well. So that's going to be the interesting one. I don't know, and I don't know that anybody is really in Desiree Reed Francois' mind. What is she thinking when it comes to this? Is she thinking that this is going to be a situation where I can go ahead and basically sell the fan base on this, showing improvement? I don't know. That's the question. That's the question that's going to be. That's the one that's going to be interesting. Is where exactly is Arizona with this? And I don't know. And I don't think anybody really knows. It's kind of a uncharted waters template that you're kind of like, all right, well, I don't really know where we're going here, but and only she knows what she's looking for, because I do believe she had the money to get rid of him this past year. Now, you could say she couldn't bring in like the most high profile coaches, but I also don't know that those guys are necessarily coming here to begin with. So she's kind of doubled down on Brent Brennan to a certain degree and said he needs a fair chance. I thought last year was a fair chance, but obviously she disagrees, and she is the Arizona athletic director. So what is that? And that's where I keep coming back to the identity. Do we know what we're watching? In years past, we knew generally, even if a team like with Ridgerod, I'll keep bringing that example up, we knew what we were watching. We knew that you might not like the template, but he was going to go for speed over size, and he was going to try to gadget his way to victories. I at least knew what he was going for. When it comes to Brennan, obviously, that's the first course of business, is that you had no clue what you were going for. Now, you could say that, he got rid of Dino Babers. Yeah, he did. And, maybe Seth Dagey should have been the hire the first time, even though he had no OC potential. But there's obviously that. I don't know. That's going to be an interesting thing to be able to find. It's going to be an interesting thing to watch play out, because I don't really know what success looks like. And I don't think that anybody really knows what success looks like when it comes to Arizona. So only she does know that. But I do know that if you're bringing him back, you're probably going to give him a pretty loose rein to be able to do some stuff. And when you look at kind of the coaching staff and all the turnover and stuff, you clearly look at it and said that, you like what you are, that, the strength and conditioning guy to me might be a really nice guy. I get all that. But that also was something that just didn't make a ton of sense to me. It just never looked very good. And you would hear, too, about how it was far more plyometrics over heavyweight based, things like that. So there's obviously that. Now, the other thing, too, that I think you need to look at and you need to kind of understand here, too, is, up the road. You see what's going on. You see that quick turnaround with Dilly. So it can be done. I mean, that was done within a year, essentially. So the fact that that was done within a year shows you that it can be done. And it's not like he inherited this great situation. He inherited less talent, obviously, than Brennan. But he was able to hit the ball out of the park in the portal. And that's what I'm going to keep coming back to, is that you've got to hit on these portal kids. Some of these guys that you're looking at, and you're like, okay, are these OKGs? They can't be OKGs. They have got to be players that can come in and contribute immediately. So we're going to find out how that's going to play. All right, now, Arizona is coming up here very, very shortly. Arizona basketball right around the corner. First game of the Big 12 season, which is going to be very, very exciting, I think, for everybody. Arizona TCU, then you got Arizona Cincinnati. It's kind of a brand new season for Arizona basketball. Now, listen, the out-of-conference part sucked, obviously, but you've also got kind of a new season here. Can you start out 1-0, you start out 2-0, hope springs eternal, and I think that's just what you're hoping for if you're Arizona, that can be the case and that you can continue to get better. We will see, obviously, how that plays out, but again, wasn't a great out-of-conference schedule, but we are going to also talk a little bit more about recruiting. We're going to talk tomorrow about the latest additions for Arizona football, because there's been some more. Will Trey Spivey be official by then? We're going to find all of that out too. But like I said, this is the time of the year. Portal stuff is portal stuff, obviously. So You take the good with the bad, but it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I love the portal. I love giving kids the flexibility because I think for too long, even though the product wasn't as great, the product wasn't as great, obviously. It still is something that I like watching, and I like watching the kids get the flexibility to showcase and be able to move around. But as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your very first listen of the day. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Bear down, back the A, and we will be back with you tomorrow.